Everyone thought Emily Carter was fighting for a building. That was the story Mark Reynolds needed them to believe. A grieving doctor clinging to her dead father's clinic. A tired woman refusing to modernize. A fiancé too emotional to understand that charity could not survive without corporate discipline. By sunrise, he had made it sound almost noble. He was not betraying her. He was rescuing her. He was not selling Carter Free Clinic. He was giving it a future. And because Emily was lying in an emergency room bed with a bruised shoulder, a bandage near her temple, and a hospital bracelet around her wrist, people were ready to believe him. That was the easy version. The version that fit neatly into one folder, but the truth was older than Mark's ambition. It was in the first patient ledger her father kept by hand. It was in the green chair where exhausted mothers slept while waiting for free antibiotics. It was in the back hallway where a nurse once heard a dying man ask for one promise to be kept. It was in the patients Mark had already marked as non-revenue cases before the board had even voted. Emily did not know all of that when she first opened her eyes. She only knew Mark had taken her phone. She knew Uncle Victor was outside the curtain whispering about signatures. She knew the woman from Asterion Health had arrived with documents no one could have prepared in one night. And she knew 6 o'clock meant more than paperwork. At 6, Carter Free Clinic was supposed to open. At 6, the people with nowhere else to go would start lining up outside the glass door. At 6, if Mark won, they would find the lights off. So Emily stayed quiet. Not because she was weak. Because before Mark took her phone, before pain blurred the edge of the room, before everyone decided she was too injured to be believed, Emily had left one instruction with Nurse Helen Brooks. Call Jonah Vale. Do not let them touch the clinic records. And somewhere in that hospital, Helen was already looking for the one record Mark forgot a sick woman could still leave behind. Carter Free Clinic had never looked like the kind of place people fought over. It sat between a closed laundromat and a discount grocery store, with faded blue letters on the front window and a bell over the door that stuck whenever the weather turned damp. There were no marble floors, no private suites, just 12 plastic chairs, 2 exam rooms, a narrow pharmacy closet, and the old green chair in the corner with a tear along one arm. Emily's father refused to throw that chair away. It waits better than most people, Dr. Samuel Carter used to say. When Emily was 8, she slept in that chair with her backpack under her head while her father stitched a construction worker's hand in exam room 2. Years later, she found him asleep there after midnight with an open patient ledger across his chest. He died 2 years later. The chair stayed. So did the debts. People remembered Samuel Carter's free medicine and midnight calls. They did not remember the past due utility notices, the suppliers demanding cash, or the daughter left with 3 boxes of ledgers and a community that believed help would still be there. Emily loved her father. She also resented him on days she was too ashamed to admit it. She resented the way his kindness had become a mortgage he could never finish paying. She resented the patients who looked at her with the same trust they once gave him. Most of all, she resented herself for feeling trapped by the very thing she admired. That was where Mark entered the story, not as a villain, not at first. He came to the clinic on a rainy Tuesday with sleeves rolled up, a stethoscope in his coat pocket, and a way of speaking that made panic sound manageable. He volunteered twice a week, helped renegotiate a supply contract, then sat beside Emily after closing and showed her spreadsheets she did not want to understand. "You are carrying too much alone," he told her. She believed him because it was true. That was the dangerous part. Cruel people were easier to resist when they arrived cruel. Mark arrived useful. 3 months after her father's funeral, he said the clinic needed partners. Not buyers, he insisted. Partners. People with capital. People who could give the clinic a future bigger than charity jars and emergency grants. Emily looked at the framed photograph of her father on the wall. In it, Samuel Carter stood beside the green chair, one hand resting on its back as if it were a person he trusted. "What would change?" she asked. "Only the parts that are already hurting you," Mark said. He was good at that, finding the bruise and calling the pressure treatment. Asterion Health entered the conversation slowly. First, as a possible sponsor, then as a back-office partner that could absorb administrative burden. Mark used phrases that sounded clean: sustainability, expansion, continuity of care. Emily wanted to hate the words, but some of them were necessary. The roof leaked above exam room 1. Their vaccine refrigerator had failed twice in one winter. Darlene had skipped paychecks and lied about it until Emily found the unopened envelope in her desk. Some mornings, Emily unlocked the front door and wondered whether love was enough to keep lights on. It was not. That frightened her more than Mark did. So, she let him help. She let him review contracts. She let him speak to Victor, her father's younger brother, who believed the clinic had swallowed the Carter family whole. You think that chair is holy because sick people sat in it? Emily did not answer him. That silence became a habit. She stayed silent when Mark suggested replacing the waiting room furniture before the donor tour. She stayed silent when he moved old patient ledgers into storage because they made the office look like a museum of poverty. She stayed silent when Victor began calling the clinic the property instead of the clinic. Small words changed first. Then doors changed. Mark started taking calls outside. Victor stopped copying Emily on certain emails. Asterion sent polite summaries of meetings she had not attended. When Emily asked about them, Mark kissed her forehead and said, "I am trying to spare you from the ugly parts." It sounded loving if she was tired enough. The night of the accident, Emily was driving to an emergency board meeting with Jonah Vale's old business card in her coat pocket. Jonah had been her father's attorney for 20 years. He had called that afternoon, his voice thin with age, but sharp with warning. "Do not sign anything tonight," he said. "I was not planning to, Emily," Jonah replied. "That is not the same thing." Before she could ask what he meant, a message from Darlene arrived. A courier had delivered locked file boxes to the clinic without Emily's approval. Emily turned left into Mark, only hard enough to give Mark exactly what he needed. Now, in the emergency room, pain pulsed behind her temple with every beep of the monitor. Then Mark's voice returned. "She has been deteriorating for months," he said. Emily kept her eyes closed. Uncle Victor answered, low and irritated. "Will the power of attorney hold?" "It will if we document incapacity before 6. A paper slid against a clipboard. The sound was soft. The damage was not. Then another voice entered. Female, controlled, unfamiliar. "Sophia Lane, Asterion Health," the woman said. "I need to confirm something before we proceed. The board consent minutes in the packet are dated tomorrow." A pause. Emily did not move. Mark answered smoothly. "Formatting issue. The emergency clause allows us to advance the review. Advance review is not the same as record approval before it happens," Sophia said. For the first time since Emily had woken, Mark did not answer immediately. Through the gap in the curtain, Emily saw his navy coat, Victor's hand gripping a folder, and Nurse Helen Brooks standing at the nurse's station with Emily's chart open in front of her. Helen was not looking at Mark. She was looking at the timestamp, the same nurse who had checked Emily's pupils 20 minutes earlier. The same nurse who had asked her name, the date, the hospital, and whether she knew why she was there. The same nurse who had heard Emily whisper. Helen's pen stopped above the page. Emily understood she might not be the only one listening. She did not move. She did not speak. She waited. Her father had taught her this long before Mark learned how to make betrayal sound like strategy. When a room is full of people deciding who gets to be heard, the first person to notice the lie must protect the truth until it is strong enough to stand. Mark Reynolds had learned early that the right folder could make a lie look responsible. A loose page invited questions. A folder suggested order. A tabbed folder with signatures marked in yellow suggested that everyone important had agreed, and the emotional person in the room had to stop delaying progress. He carried that kind of folder now. Navy cover, silver clip, Asterion Health logo in the lower right corner, 3 colored tabs along the side, transfer authority, board consent, patient continuity plan. Victor Carter noticed the logo first. They stood in a family consultation room 2 doors down from the emergency bay. It was meant for grief, not business. A box of tissues sat on the table beside a phone for calling a chaplain. Mark placed the folder where families usually receive bad news. Victor stared at it. "You brought that here." "I brought what we need," Mark said. "You said this was only in case she refused." She was going to refuse. Victor looked toward the closed door. "She had an accident. And that is unfortunate," Mark said. "But it also means the board cannot wait for her to recover, call Jonah Vale, and poison the entire agreement." Victor's mouth tightened. "Jonah is retired. Retired men still make phone calls." Mark opened the folder. Victor saw yellow signature flags, places for initials, witness lines, consent acknowledgement, emergency authority certification. "Too clean," Too ready. How long have you had this? Victor asked. Asterion. Needed contingencies. That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters before 6. Victor sat down slowly. Mark had chosen him carefully. Victor did not see himself as a criminal. He was a brother who had watched Samuel Carter give free care to strangers while bills piled up at home. He believed Emily had inherited not a clinic, but a disease. The Carter need to sacrifice everything and call it purpose. That made him useful. You told me the old trust language was gone, Mark said. It is gone. You are sure? Victor rubbed the bridge of his nose. Samuel had drafts, mission language, restrictions. He talked about some guardian clause, but nothing valid was filed with the operating documents. Nothing valid? Nothing anyone could find. Mark did not like that answer. He slid one sheet across the table. This is the emergency power of attorney. You sign as family witness. I certify that Emily previously agreed to transfer review. Doctor, Bell signs the incapacity notation once the attending confirms she should not handle legal decisions tonight. Victor looked at the page without touching it. What if Bell refuses? Then we use the resident's note and keep the language clinical. Observation. Head trauma. Emotional distress. Medication. Administered. She was talking when I came in. She was upset. She asked for her phone. Confused patients ask for many things. Victor's eyes lifted. For a moment, something human almost interrupted the plan. Then Mark softened his voice. That was his gift. He knew how to make pressure feel like mercy. Victor, your brother built something beautiful and unsustainable. Emily is drowning in it. She cannot pay staff on time. If we do nothing, the clinic dies in public. If we act tonight, Asterion absorbs the debt, keeps essential services, and Emily gets to be free. Victor looked at the folder again. Free was the word Mark used when he meant removed. Outside the consultation room, wheels passed over tile. Somewhere down the hall, a patient coughed until a nurse closed a curtain. The hospital kept moving while a clinic was being dismantled, one signature line at a time. Victor picked up the pen. He did not sign. Not yet. What happens to the current patients? Mark flipped to the third tab. Continuity plan? Victor read the smaller columns beneath the heading. Priority transfer. Insurance review. Service compatibility. Revenue classification. His thumb stopped beside one phrase. Non-revenue case. These are people, Victor said. They are categories for administrative processing. My brother treated these people. Your brother also left Emily with debt, unpaid staff, and promises no one can afford. Victor looked down again. And this time his anger helped Mark more than his doubt hurt him. Mark saw the shift and moved quickly. The transfer team reaches the clinic at 5:30. Files are boxed by department. Furniture and non-essential items go to disposal, unless Darlene opens storage before then. Asterion wants the public announcement ready by 6:30. Public announcement. Mark tapped the folder. A merger sounds better than a sale. Before Victor could answer, Sophia Lane appeared in the doorway with her tablet against her chest. She had not come in like someone ready to fight. She had come in like someone trained to find mistakes before mistakes became lawsuits. That was why Mark disliked her immediately. I need clarification, she said. The board consent minutes in this packet are dated tomorrow. Mark closed the folder halfway. Sophia's eyes dropped to his hand, then to the yellow flag still visible inside. Victor noticed that. So did Mark. Now, Mark had to decide which lie to tell first. Sophia turned her tablet so Mark could see the date at the top of the board, consent minutes. Tomorrow? For one thin second, Mark's fingers pressed harder against the folder. Then he gave her the look he used on anyone who needed to be moved away from the thing they had just noticed. That is an internal formatting issue, he said. The draft was prepared for tomorrow's scheduled vote. The emergency clause allows us to advance the review. Sophia did not blink. Advance review is not the same as record approval before it happens. Victor shifted in his chair. Mark heard it. The small scrape of doubt. So he changed the subject before doubt could settle. Let us bring Dr. Carter in, he said. Everyone should see why delay is dangerous. That sentence did what he wanted. It turned Emily from the person with authority into the problem that needed managing. 10 minutes later, a nurse who did not know the whole story pushed Emily into the small conference room in a wheelchair Mark had requested. Emily had not asked for it. She could stand with help, and she had already told Helen that 3 times. But the wheelchair told a cleaner story. Bruised temple, hospital band, blanket over her knees, IV tape at the back of her hand. Mark stood when she entered, not because he respected her, but because witnesses were present. "M," he said softly. Emily did not answer. She looked first at Victor, then Sophia, then Dr. Bell, the attending physician, who stood near the wall with the guarded expression of a man invited into a legal problem. Helen Brooks remained behind Emily's chair, one hand lightly on the handle. "Emily," Sophia said, "I need to confirm whether you consented to emergency transfer review of Carter Free Clinic before your accident." "No," Emily said. The word was clear. It did not come out loud, but it landed in the room without help. Mark lowered his eyes, almost sadly. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," he said. He did not look cruel. That would have made him easier to fight. Mark looked heartbroken. "She has been under severe pressure for months," he told them. "Sleep deprivation, grief, financial strain, staff issues. Tonight she was driving to a meeting after an upsetting call with an old attorney who has been feeding her fear about losing her father's legacy. Jonah Vale told me not to sign anything," Emily said, "because Jonah has never accepted that the clinic needs to evolve. Jonah was my father's lawyer." "And your father?" Victor said, unable to stop himself. "Left behind a mess." The words hit Emily differently than Mark's lies. Victor was family. He had stood beside her father's casket. Now he would not meet her eyes. Mark took the opening. "Emily has confused protection with control," he said. "She thinks if anything changes, she is betraying Samuel." Dr. Bell cleared his throat. "I am here only to address medical status." "Of course," Mark said. "Doctor, would you advise a patient with head trauma, pain medication, emotional distress, and possible concussion symptoms to make major legal decisions?" Emily gripped the arm of the wheelchair. There it was. Not a diagnosis, a cage built from medical words. Dr. Bell hesitated. "In general, I would be cautious." "In general," Emily said. Helen's hand tightened once on the wheelchair handle. Mark's gaze flicked toward her. Emily felt the movement behind her, small but steady. Helen did not speak. Not yet. But the silence behind Emily felt different from the silence across the table. Sophia looked at Dr. Bell. "Was Dr. Carter oriented when she arrived?" "She was assessed," he said carefully. "That is not what I asked." Mark stepped in. "She knew basic information, yes. That does not mean she understood a complex institutional transfer." "I understand theft," Emily said. Victor pushed back from the table. "Do not call it that. What should I call it when my fiancé takes my phone, brings prepared papers to my hospital bed, and tells strangers I agreed to something I refused?" Mark said, still soft. That was the humiliation. Not shouting, not a slap, not a scene anyone could easily condemn. Just a man using tenderness as a muzzle. He turned to the others with pain arranged carefully across his face. "This is why we cannot wait." Emily wanted to stand. Pain warned her not to, so she did the harder thing. She stayed seated, looked at Dr. Bell, and took back the room one question at a time. "Ask me," the doctor frowned. "Ask you what?" "My name. The date. Where I am. Why I am here. Ask me who I told Nurse Brooks to call. Ask me what sentence I asked her to write down." Mark's jaw moved once. Helen reached into the pocket of her scrub top and withdrew a folded nursing note. Dr. Bell saw it. So did Sophia. Mark saw it last. And for the first time that night, his careful grief had to make room for calculation. Helen Brooks did not unfold the note immediately. She had worked in emergency rooms for 31 years. She knew the difference between a family disagreement and a room trying to turn a patient into paperwork. Mark reached toward her. "I do not think that is necessary," he said. Helen moved the note out of his reach. "It is part of the chart," she said. Dr. Bell held out his hand. "Let me see it." Mark's face stayed composed, but the kindness drained from his eyes. Only Emily saw it because she was the only one he had stopped performing for. Helen gave the note to Dr. Bell. He read the first line. "Patient alert. Oriented to name, location, date, and event." His expression changed before he could stop it. Sophia stepped closer. "What time was that recorded?" "Not 4:21, Helen said. Mark glanced at the wall clock. She was assessed before medication. Her condition may have shifted afterward. She asked for Jonah Vale after medication, Helen said. Victor looked up sharply. Dr. Bell turned the page. There it was, written in Helen's careful block letters. Patient states, call Jonah Vale. Do not let them move the clinic records. Emily had not remembered how hard she had fought to say the second sentence until she saw Mark's jaw tighten. The danger was in the small adjustments. Dr. Bell rereading the timestamp, Sophia opening her tablet again, Victor's hand leaving the pen. Mark noticed every movement. This does not change the broader issue, he said. No, Dr. Bell said. But it means I cannot certify incapacity based on confusion. Mark turned to him with controlled disbelief. Doctor, we are discussing a woman with a head injury who just accused her fiancé of theft. And a chart that says she was oriented, Dr. Bell replied. Helen watched Mark switch tactics. He no longer pushed for the note to disappear. He pushed for it to become smaller. Then clarify it, Mark said. Add that she was emotionally distressed and fixated on the clinic. Add that her judgment appeared impaired by trauma. Dr. Bell looked uncomfortable. That is not what the assessment says. It is what everyone in this room can see. Emily felt heat move through her chest, not from pain this time. This was how Mark had done it for months. He did not erase the truth first. He surrounded it with enough language that people could ignore it without feeling dishonest. Helen stepped forward. She answered every question I asked her. Mark looked at her as if noticing a stain on his sleeve. With respect, Nurse Brooks, you are not qualified to determine legal capacity. No, Helen said. Sophia's eyes moved between them. Is the chart locked? The initial nursing note is time-stamped, Helen said. Any addendum will show separately. Mark's calm thinned. Victor heard it then. Maybe for the first time. Not anger, calculation under pressure. A knock came at the door. A young resident stepped in, holding a printed triage entry she had not meant to bring into a war. Dr. Bell? She said. Mark's head turned. The resident froze. Helen recognized her. Dr. Maya Patel. Second month in emergency rotation. Too young to understand how dangerous a misplaced sentence could become, but honest enough to have written one down. Dr. Bell gestured for the paper. Maya handed it over, eyes dropping to Emily with quick concern. I was the one who asked the orientation questions, she said. She was clear. Mark smiled at her. It was not warm. Dr. Patel, no one is questioning your effort. We are trying to protect Dr. Carter from making a decision in a compromised state. Maya swallowed. She also asked why her phone was missing. Victor's face shifted. Emily looked at Mark. Mark did not look back. Sophia typed something into her tablet. What time was the phone question? She asked. Maya checked the paper. 4:18. Sophia turned the tablet toward the table. The emergency transfer packet was emailed to Asterion Legal at 4:16. No one spoke for 2 seconds. Not because the truth had won, because everyone had just seen how early the lie had started. Mark recovered first. The packet was preliminary. With Dr. Carter's consent? Sophia asked. With the understanding that consent had been discussed. Emily laughed once. It hurt her ribs, so the sound came out broken, but it was still a laugh. Mark looked at her then, and the mask almost slipped. Helen saw enough. She folded her copy of the note and slid it into the inner pocket of her scrub jacket instead of returning it to the clipboard. Mark saw that too. His voice lowered. Nurse Brooks. Hospital records belong in the chart. Helen met his eyes. And false stories belong nowhere near one. The door opened behind Sophia. An orderly leaned in, holding a phone. Sorry, he said. Emily's fingers closed around the blanket. Helen did not move toward the phone right away. She looked first at Mark, because now she knew something he did not want confirmed. Jonah had been trying to reach them before dawn. The call from Jonah Vale lasted less than 90 seconds. Helen held the receiver close and said almost nothing. That worried Mark more than questions would have. Questions could be answered. Silence had to be watched. Emily could only hear pieces from where she sat. No, Mr. Vale. Yes, she is awake. No, do not send it to the general fax. I understand. Helen wrote something on the back of a medication label, folded it once, and returned the phone. Mark stepped toward her. What did he say? He has documents relevant to Dr. Carter's authority over the clinic, Helen said. That sounds legal. Mark replied. And therefore outside this hospital's concern. Sophia Lane's tablet chimed before Helen could answer. She glanced down. Emily noticed the change in her face because Sophia had not looked shaken even when the board minutes were wrong. What is it? Emily asked. Sophia opened an attachment. A spreadsheet appeared, columns packed tight with patient numbers, insurance status, medication needs, appointment dates, and transfer destinations. At the top was a title, Carter Free Clinic. Transition, intake, list. This was just sent to Asterion Operations, Sophia said. Mark's expression sharpened. That list is preliminary. Preliminary for what? Emily asked. For continuity of care, so no one falls through the cracks. Emily pushed the blanket from her lap. Pain moved through her ribs, but this time she welcomed it. Read the columns, she said. Sophia hesitated. Emily knew that hesitation. It was the pause of a person who had found something ugly inside clean language and did not yet know what courage would cost. Read them, Emily repeated. Sophia turned the tablet toward the table. The spreadsheet did not use names, only patient IDs. But Emily knew her patients well enough to see them without names. C. 1042. Teresa Alvarez, who came every Thursday before sunrise because her daughter worked 2 jobs and could only drive her then. C. 1188. Rodney Miles, diabetic, proud, always pretending he did not need the extra test strips. Emily slipped into a paper bag. C. 1000. 220. Kayla and Ben Mercer, siblings with asthma whose mother cried the first time the clinic found them an inhaler she could afford. Emily saw all of them reduced to columns. Medication support, discontinued pending insurance review, follow-up, redirect, charity eligibility, reassess. Then she saw the phrase that made Victor look away. Non-revenue Ks. Mark spoke before anyone else could decide what the words meant. That is internal classification. Every health system uses categories. Not for my patients, Emily said. Our patients, Mark corrected. Emily turned to him. You never learned their names. The sentence did not sound dramatic. That was why it struck harder. Victor rubbed his forehead. Mark, he said. You told me essential services would stay. They will. This says some medications are discontinued. Pending review. Review by people who have never met them. Mark's patience cracked at the edge. Do you want the clinic to survive? Or do you want Samuel's handwritten charity book framed on the wall while the place goes bankrupt? Emily looked at Victor then. In that moment, she did not see only betrayal in him. She saw grief twisted into resentment. Victor had loved his brother once. Maybe that was why he hated the clinic so much. But grief did not excuse this. Sophia, Emily said. When was that list created? Sophia opened the file properties. Mark moved fast. 4 days ago, Sophia said. 4 days ago? Dr. Bell repeated. Sophia nodded. Last modified tonight at 4:38. Distribution scheduled for 5:15. Transfer team arrival listed as 5:30. Emily gripped the wheelchair arms. 5:30? Not 6. Mark had given them the official deadline. The real damage was starting earlier. Helen stepped behind Emily and lowered her voice. Darlene is at the clinic tonight. She was covering the early supply delivery. If they reach her first, Emily said, they will tell her I approved it. Mark's face changed just enough to prove she was right. Emily held out her hand. Helen, your phone. Mark stepped forward. You already did, Emily said. Helen placed her phone in Emily's hand. Emily's fingers shook as she dialed Darlene's number from memory. The first attempt failed because pain blurred the keypad. She tried again. Everyone watched. That mattered. Mark had used the wheelchair to make her look helpless. Now the whole room saw her make the call herself. Darlene answered on the second ring, breathless. Clinic? It's Emily. A small cry broke through the speaker. Dr. Carter? Mark said you were sedated. Mark closed his eyes for half a second. That half second was enough. Emily put the call on speaker and set the phone on the table. I am awake, Emily said. Listen carefully. Lock the front door. Do not open storage for anyone. If a man says I approve the transfer, ask him to say Mrs. Alvarez's first name. Helen looked at her. Emily did not look away from Mark. My father told me anyone who truly served that clinic would know the people before the paperwork. Across the room, Sophia slowly closed the spreadsheet. She no longer looked like Asterion's representative. She looked like someone deciding whether the company that paid her deserved the truth. Mark reached for his own phone. Emily saw the movement. So did Victor. This time, Victor caught Mark's wrist before the call could be made. Victor held Mark's wrist only long enough to prove he had chosen a side for 3 seconds. Then he let go. That was all Victor could manage. Mark looked down at the hand that had stopped him, then back at Victor. "Do not start pretending this is moral courage," he said. "You signed onto this because you knew Samuel was wrong." Victor's face tightened. He was reckless. "He was beloved," Emily said. Her voice had less strength than she wanted, but the sentence reached him. Darlene's voice came through thin and panicked. "The courier is outside. 2 men. They have a work order." Emily leaned closer to the phone. "Lock the inner door." "I did. But they are asking about storage." "What exactly are they asking for?" A pause. "They asked where we keep the old waiting room furniture." Emily's hand went cold around the blanket. "Not the files. The chair." Helen looked toward the phone as if a memory had entered through the speaker. Jonah Vale's call had not been about the safe. It had been a warning against the safe. Helen closed her eyes for one breath. Then she said the words slowly, as if reading them from a night she had never forgotten. "Your father said, if they ever come for the clinic, do not look where the papers are supposed to be. Look where the waiting never ended." Emily stared at her. Victor stopped breathing through his anger. "What does that mean?" Sophia asked. Helen's face had changed. Not softer, older. "Samuel was dying," she said. "It was near 2 in the morning. He refused more morphine because he wanted to speak clearly. He asked me to call Jonah Vale, but Jonah did not answer. So Samuel told me if the clinic was ever treated like property." "The waiting room?" Emily whispered. "The green chair," Victor said. The words left his mouth before he could hide that he understood. Emily looked at him. Victor's eyes were not on Mark now. They were somewhere else. In a memory. Samuel at 22, carrying Victor into that same clinic after a factory accident because Victor had refused an ambulance bill he could not afford. Samuel sewing his brother's palm for free. Samuel staying until dawn. Victor angry even then, not because Samuel had failed him, but because Samuel had seen him helpless. Emily had heard the story once. Victor had spent years pretending he had forgotten it. Now the memory found him in front of everyone. Mark saw it. Emily saw Mark see it. That was enough. "Darlene," Emily said, "is the green chair still in storage?" "It is," Darlene answered. "Mark had it moved last month." "Where?" "Back wall. Under the old winter coats. He said disposal would pick it up after the merger announcement." Sophia looked at Mark. "You moved the chair?" "It was unsanitary," Mark said. "You moved it before tonight. It was furniture." "It was evidence," Emily said. Mark's expression hardened. "You do not know that." "No," Emily said. She turned back to the phone. "Darlene, find the chair. Do not cut anything open unless I tell you. Describe what you see." Footsteps sounded through the speaker. A key scraped. A storage door dragged open. Emily closed her eyes. And for 1 second, she was 8 again, waking before dawn with the vinyl arm of that chair stuck to her cheek. Her father would be at the front desk, writing in a ledger by hand. He always said computers failed when poor people needed them most. She had called that stubborn. Now she wondered how many stubborn things had been protection wearing the clothes of habit. Darlene's voice returned, muffled. "I found it. There is tape under the cushion." Victor stood. Mark moved at the same time. Sophia blocked him without touching him, placing herself between Mark and the phone. "Let her finish," Sophia said. Mark looked at her like a tool that had malfunctioned. Darlene continued. "There is a cloth envelope. It is taped to the wooden frame. It has Dr. Carter's handwriting on it. The old Dr. Carter." Emily could not speak. Helen answered for her. "Read the outside." Paper rustled. Darlene's voice broke on the first line. "To Emily, when they call mercy bad business." Victor sank back into his chair. Emily pressed her fingers to her mouth. Not to hide tears, but to keep herself steady enough to listen. "There is another line," Darlene said. "It says, Mission Guardian Appendix. Do not file with Victor's copy." Victor flinched as if struck. Mark turned on him. "You said it did not exist." I never saw that, Victor said, but his fear made the denial smaller. Sophia opened a recording app on her tablet and placed it face up on the table. Darlene, photograph the envelope. Send it to me and to Dr. Carter's attorney. Do not hand it to anyone. At the clinic. Mark's voice dropped. You are exceeding your role. Sophia did not look up. My role is to prevent Asterion from acquiring contaminated authority. Helen looked at Emily. Darlene was crying now. Do I open it? Emily looked at Victor. Then Mark. Then the clock. 5:23. 7 minutes before the transfer team was scheduled to enter the clinic. Open it, Emily said. The sound of tearing tape filled the room. No one needed to be told what had shifted. They could hear it in Mark's breathing. Mark Reynolds did not raise his voice. That was how Emily knew he was most dangerous. The phone lay on the table between them, speaker still open. Darlene's breathing trembling through the line from the clinic storage room. Somewhere on that end, tape had been torn from wood. Inside that old green chair, Samuel Carter's last protection had survived a month in the dark. Darlene whispered, There are papers inside. Mark looked at Sophia's tablet, then at Helen's hand, near the phone, then at Emily. His calculation finished before anyone else understood a new fight had begun. Do not read another word, he said. Darlene froze. Dr. Carter, do not read it, Mark repeated. You are not authorized to handle legal property, and Nurse Brooks is not authorized to direct clinic staff during a hospital admission. Helen's eyes narrowed. You were directing a sale during one. I was acting under emergency authority. You were acting before it existed, Emily said. Mark turned to her with a softness that had become almost insulting. Emily, you are proving my point. You are injured, medicated, and encouraging hospital staff, corporate representatives, and a clinic receptionist to interfere with private documents they cannot authenticate. Sophia looked up. I am not corporate counsel. No, Mark said. You are Asterion's representative, and if you attach this company to a stolen envelope found during a phone call arranged by a nurse, you will make this entire process toxic. Toxic did not mean false. Toxic meant inconvenient. Victor stood halfway from his chair. If that appendix is real, Mark cut in. A very large word. He reached for the phone. Helen took it first. Her hand shook once. Not from fear of Mark, but from knowing one careless movement could let him bury Samuel's message again. Mark stepped close enough that Dr. Bell moved forward. Nurse Brooks, Mark said, you are holding a communication involving my fiancé's medical status and clinic property. I am asking you to end the call. You are asking the wrong person. I am warning you. Emily saw the effect of that sentence travel through the room. Dr. Bell looked toward the door, already imagining hospital administration. Maya Patel lowered her eyes to the chart in her arms. Victor's anger lost shape again. Even Sophia's face tightened because Mark was not wrong about one thing. Rules could be used faster than truth. Mark pressed, I will report a privacy violation. I will report interference with patient care. I will report that Dr. Carter, while under observation for head trauma, was allowed to issue instructions affecting clinic assets. When this becomes part of the record, every action taken on this call will look exactly like what it is. Emily answered, before Helen could. What is it, Mark? He leaned over the table. Desperation. The word struck cleanly because it contained just enough truth. Emily was desperate. Desperate to stop the transfer team. Desperate to protect patients she had been too exhausted to visit properly. Desperate to prove she was not the weak link Mark had described. He had always known how to put his thumb on the part of her that already hurt. Darlene spoke through the phone, frightened. The men are at the storage door. Helen's face changed. Lock it. I did. They say they have authorization from Dr. Reynolds. Mark held out his hand. End the call. No one moved. Then he made his mistake. The appendix does not matter without the original operating trust, he said. Samuel kept too many sentimental drafts. Victor already confirmed there was nothing enforceable in the filed copy. Victor turned slowly. You said you had never heard of it. Mark's eyes cut to him. Emily felt the room tilt. Not because Mark had confessed. He was too careful for that. But because he had known what to attack. Sophia caught it too. Her fingers paused over her tablet. Helen did not waste the opening. Darlene, she said, photograph every page. Send it to Jonah Vale. Then slide the envelope under the pharmacy door and lock yourself in the front office. Mark moved around the table, not fast enough to be called violence, fast enough to show what he wanted. He reached for Helen's wrist. Dr. Bell blocked him with one arm. Do not touch my nurse. The sentence changed the temperature more than a shout would have. Maya looked up. Victor sat back down as if his legs had failed. At the ceiling corner, a small black hospital camera watched the conference room door and the strip of hallway beyond it. It would not record sound or Mark's threats, but it would record his hand reaching. It would record Dr. Bell stepping between them. It would record Helen clutching the phone like evidence. Mark saw the camera after everyone else did. His hand fell. Then Darlene cried out through the speaker, "They are opening storage." A metallic crash followed. Emily tried to rise, but pain stopped her halfway. Mark looked at the clock. 5:29. For a moment, his face no longer needed performance. "All this," he said, "for a chair." Emily held his gaze. "No," she said, "for everyone you thought was too poor to count." On the phone, Darlene whispered one thing before the line crackled. "I sent it." Then the call went dead. Sophia Lane had built her career on clean acquisitions. Not kind ones, clean ones. A clean acquisition had signatures that matched authority, dates that matched meetings. No frightened receptionist locking herself inside a clinic storage room while a hospital nurse protected a phone call like a witness on a stand. This was not clean. The call had died, but Darlene's final words remained in the room. "I sent it." Sophia looked down at her tablet. A new message appeared from an unfamiliar clinic address, copied to Jonah Vale and to her Asterion compliance inbox. Samuel Carter Appendix. Mark saw it arrive. "Do not open that," he said. Sophia lifted her eyes. "You do not give me instructions on compliance. I give you instructions on exposure. If you attach Asterion to stolen documents, the company will leave you holding the breach. Then I should understand the breach before I help complete it." She opened the attachment. The first image showed a cloth envelope with Samuel Carter's handwriting across the front. The second showed a typed page with uneven margins, old signature lines, and a notary stamp, faded but visible. Mission Guardian Appendix to Carter Free Clinic Operating Trust. Emily did not ask to see it yet. She watched Sophia instead. There was a moment in every dishonest transaction when the person paid to look away realized looking away was also a signature. Emily saw that moment arrive in Sophia's face. Sophia scrolled. "The clinic may not be sold, transferred, merged, or materially converted away from charitable care," she read. "Without written consent of the Mission Guardian." Victor closed his eyes. Mark answered too quickly. "A loose appendix without filing confirmation is useless," Sophia continued. "Mission Guardian designation to be held by Emily Ann Carter upon her 30th birthday, unless she declines in writing." Emily had turned 36 weeks earlier. Mark stepped closer. "It was never filed." Sophia opened another file. "This one was already in Asterion's data room," she said. Mark stopped. Sophia's voice changed, not louder, but colder. "A scanned operating trust uploaded by your account 3 weeks ago. Page 32 references an attached Mission Guardian appendix. Page 33 is missing." Victor stared at Mark. "You told me there was no reference." "I said there was no enforceable appendix." "You said Samuel's restriction language was sentimental." "It is." Sophia turned the tablet toward Dr. Bell and Helen. Asterion Legal requested the missing page twice. Dr. Reynolds responded that the family copy was incomplete and that Victor Carter had confirmed all mission language was non-binding. Victor's mouth opened. No defense came out. Mark looked at Sophia as if she had betrayed him personally. "You are misunderstanding internal legal review." "No," Sophia said. "I am reading your email." She tapped again. A message opened with Mark's name at the top. "If the Guardian language appears, we need to move before Emily's attorney re-enters the conversation. She is emotionally attached but exhausted. Victor will certify family support." Emily felt no victory, only recognition. Mark had not merely doubted her. He had measured her exhaustion and built a plan around it. Sophia swallowed once. "There is more." Mark's voice sharpened. "Enough." "No, not enough." She opened the patient transition spreadsheet again, then a second version hidden behind it. This one had names. Emily saw Teresa Alvarez, Rodney Miles, Kayla Mercer, Ben Mercer. Every patient Mark had reduced to a category had been named first, then stripped down for processing. Sophia's finger paused beside a margin note. Public charity narrative useful for acquisition optics. Remove non-revenue backlog within 90 days. Victor read it over her shoulder. Something inside him gave way. My brother's patients were your optics? Mark turned on him. Your brother's patients were bankrupting the place. They were people he knew. They were people he could not save forever. Emily looked at Mark, and at that moment, there was only this. Sophia locked her tablet and placed it flat on the table. Asterion is pausing signature authority pending compliance review. Mark laughed once. You cannot pause a deal at 5:30 in the morning because a nurse and a sentimental doctor found a chair. I can pause anything that exposes the company to fraud, coercion, and acquisition of restricted charitable assets. Mark's eyes moved to the clock. 5:38? The official deadline still waited at 6. He still had 22 minutes to turn the room back toward Emily's condition. The POA. The need for urgent action. Sophia saw him calculate, so she made her choice before he could finish. She sent the entire file chain to Asterion Compliance, Jonah Vale, and the hospital administrator. Then she looked at Emily. Dr. Carter, she said, if you are the mission guardian, he needed you silent before 6. Behind them, the conference room door opened. Jonah Vale stood there with a cane, an overcoat thrown over his pajamas, and a courier envelope under one arm. I believe, he said, I can make her silence unnecessary. Jonah Vale did not look like a man who belonged in an emergency hospital conference room before sunrise. His white hair stood unevenly above his ears. His overcoat was buttoned wrong. One pajama cuff showed beneath his trousers, and the hand around his cane trembled from the walk more than age. But the envelope under his arm did not tremble. Mark recovered quickly. Jonah, he said, forcing warmth into a voice that had no room left for it. This is a private medical matter. Jonah looked at Emily in the wheelchair, then at Helen, Dr. Bell, Sophia, and the folder on the table. No, he said. This appears to be a corporate transaction wearing a hospital bracelet. Behind Jonah, the hospital administrator stepped in, called by Sophia's compliance email and Dr. Bell's urgent message. 2 Carter Free Clinic board members followed her, half-dressed and frightened, the kind of people who had avoided conflict for years and now found it waiting at a conference table. Mark saw the audience grow, so he changed shape. He became the grieving fiancé again. I am glad everyone is here, he said, because this proves exactly why I initiated emergency review. Emily is injured. She is in pain. She is under emotional strain. Instead of resting, she has allowed a nurse, an old attorney, and a corporate representative to turn a necessary transition into a conspiracy. Necessary transition. Conspiracy. He placed both hands on the table, steady and open. I love her, Mark said. But loving someone sometimes means making the decision they are too wounded to make. Carter Free Clinic cannot survive as it is. Samuel Carter left behind a beautiful mission and an impossible structure. Asterion was prepared to keep the doors open. I did what had to be done before debt, grief, and fear destroyed the clinic completely. There was his first lie, not the documents. The love. Emily did not answer it. Mark turned to the administrator. Dr. Carter's medical state tonight makes her unable to reverse a consent she had already given. The emergency power of attorney allows family-supported continuity action. Victor can confirm. Everyone looked at Victor. He stared at the table. Mark's tone sharpened under the softness. Victor? Victor's mouth opened, but Jonah Vale placed his envelope on the table before Victor could save him. Power of attorney first, Jonah said. Mark exhaled. That document is valid. It is limited. Medical coordination. Temporary administrative continuity. It does not authorize sale, merger, transfer of charitable assets, or conversion of clinic purpose. He slid a copied page forward. Mark did not touch it, Jonah continued. And even if it did, it would require a good faith incapacity certification. Dr. Bell stepped closer. He looked tired now, and angry. I will not certify Dr. Carter as incapacitated based on tonight's assessment. Mark turned. You said caution was appropriate. Caution is not incapacity. She was oriented at 4:18 and 4:21. She requested counsel by name. The chart reflects that. Helen placed her folded nursing note beside Jonah's page. Maya Patel added the triage entry with both hands. Sophia opened the timestamp chain on her tablet. Asterion received the emergency transfer packet at 4:16. That was before Dr. Carter asked about her missing phone, before the nursing note, and before any incapacity review. The first wave broke there. Mark's public lie had not collapsed, but it had lost its clean edges. He moved to the second one. Fine, he said. Then, let us discuss authority. Emily may be lucid enough to complain, but she does not have unilateral control. The board was moving toward approval. Victor supported the transfer. Asterion had reliance. A loose appendix found in furniture cannot override operational reality. Jonah opened his envelope. This is not loose. He removed the original operating trust, its pages marked with old blue tabs. Samuel Carter filed the trust with reference to the Mission Guardian appendix. Page 32 names the appendix. Page 33 in Mark's upload was missing because someone scanned around it. Victor covered his face. Jonah set down the missing page. The clinic may not be sold, transferred, merged, or materially converted away from charitable care without written consent of the Mission Guardian. Emily Ann Carter became Mission Guardian upon turning 30, unless she declined in writing. Sophia added. Asterion Legal requested that page twice. Dr. Reynolds represented that no binding restriction existed. Mark looked at the board members. Because Victor told me. Victor stood so abruptly his chair struck the wall. No, he said. The word shook, then steadied. I told you I could not find it. You told me that meant it was gone. You told me Emily was too tired to fight and that Samuel's language was sentimental. I wanted to believe you because I was angry at my brother. He turned toward Emily. For years, I told myself Samuel gave strangers more than he gave his family. But the first time I could not pay for care, he was the one who opened that clinic door for me after midnight. He stitched my hand in exam room 2 and never wrote me a bill. Victor's voice cracked. I hated that chair because I remembered sitting in it when I needed help. I hated your father for making me feel saved by the thing I mocked. He looked back at Mark. That is on me, but I did not tell you to use her accident. Mark's face hardened. Be careful. Victor looked at Emily without hiding. I am sorry, he said. It was not enough, but it was something true in a room crowded with documents. Mark made his last turn. He went after the mission itself. Sentiment does not pay salaries, he said. Ask the staff. Ask the patients when the lights go out because Emily refused help. I used harsh language because medicine is harsh. Non-revenue cases are still cases. Categories do not mean cruelty. Emily reached for the tablet. Sophia brought it to her. Emily scrolled to the patient list with names restored. Teresa Alvarez, she said. She cleans offices at night and comes at 6 because she cannot miss the morning bus. Rodney Miles pretends he does not need extra test strips because he thinks pride is cheaper than diabetes. Kayla Mercer calls her inhaler her silver whistle so her little brother will not be scared. She looked at Mark. You called them backlog? Mark's mouth tightened. You are weaponizing emotion. Water percented 2019-5. No, Helen said. Every head turned to her. Helen had been quiet for too long to sound small now. She is naming people you made anonymous. Mark's eyes flicked toward the administrator. Then the camera outside the door. Then Sophia's tablet. Helen stepped beside Emily. Samuel Carter asked me to remember one thing before he died. Not the trust. Not the legal clause. One thing. He said if the clinic ever became a prize for people who had never waited in that room, I should ask whether they knew who the green chair was for. No one answered. Helen did. It was for whoever came before they had courage to ask for help. Emily's throat tightened, but she kept her eyes on Mark. Mark looked around the room and realized compassion had become evidence. That was when his mask finally cracked. You all keep talking about names, he said. Names do not balance accounts. Names do not keep refrigerators running. Names do not make investors absorb years of bad charity. Teresa, Rodney, Kayla, Ben. None of them pay enough to keep that place alive. The room went still. Mark heard himself too late. Emily did not raise her voice. No, she said. Sophia closed the Asterion packet. Asterion withdraws from signing pending full investigation. The administrator looked at Dr. Bell. And the hospital will document attempted interference with patient evaluation. Jonah placed the Mission Guardian appendix in front of Emily. "Dr. Carter," he said, "do you consent to any sale, transfer, merger, or conversion of Carter Free Clinic this morning?" The clock above the door read 5:58. Mark looked at her as if he still owned the answer, because he had once owned her trust. Emily took the pen. Her hand hurt. Her shoulder burned. She wrote one word across the consent line. Declined. At 5:59, Sophia sent the withdrawal notice. At 6, Mark's emergency authority expired into nothing. And across town, behind the locked front door of Carter Free Clinic, Darlene turned on the waiting room lights. By the time the sun reached the top edge of the clinic windows, Carter Free Clinic had already opened. Not fully, not normally. One front light flickered. A storage door hung crooked from where the courier team had forced it before Darlene locked herself in the front office. The old green chair sat in the middle of the waiting room with its cushion lifted, its torn arm exposed, and a strip of tape still clinging to the wooden frame beneath. But the door was open. That mattered first. Emily arrived after 7 with Helen on one side and Jonah Vale on the other, still wearing her hospital band under the sleeve of a borrowed cardigan. Dr. Bell had wanted her kept overnight. Emily had agreed to return for observation after she saw the clinic with her own eyes. Darlene met her at the entrance and started crying before either of them spoke. Emily hugged her carefully, ribs protesting. "You kept the door locked," Emily said. "I kept the chair," Darlene answered. That was when Emily almost broke. Not in the hospital. Not when Mark lied. Not when Victor apologized with shame all over his face. Here, in the room where her father had built impossible mercy out of bad furniture, late bills, and people nobody profitable wanted to count. Sophia Lane arrived 20 minutes later without her Asterion badge. She brought printed confirmation that the acquisition had been suspended pending investigation. Mark had been removed from all related authority. Victor had agreed to cooperate with Jonah and the board, though Emily did not yet know what forgiveness would look like. She was not ready to make mercy easy for the people who had confused regret with repair. The board gathered by the front desk. For years, they had loved Samuel Carter's mission more than they had protected Emily from carrying it alone. This time, Emily did not let them hide behind gratitude. "We are not going back to the old way," she said. No one argued. "The clinic stays charitable," Emily continued, "but it becomes sustainable. Transparent books, outside review, staff paid first. No one gets to call exhaustion devotion anymore." Jonah smiled faintly. Helen looked at the floor, but Emily saw her eyes shine. By 8, the first patient arrived. Teresa Alvarez stood just inside the door, with one hand on her purse strap, unsure whether the night's rumors had reached her before the truth did. "Are you open, doctor?" she asked. Emily looked at the waiting room, at the old ledgers Darlene had rescued, at the broken storage lock, at the chair Mark had called ugly, unsanitary, bad branding, proof that she could not move forward. Then Emily walked to the green chair and lowered the cushion back into place. "Almost," she said. The lights stayed on behind her. She took a sheet of paper from Jonah's folder and wrote 2 lines in black ink, reserved for anyone who had nowhere else to wait. Under it, she added her father's name. Then, after a pause, she added her own. Samuel Carter, M.D. Emily Carter, M.D. She taped the paper to the wall above the chair, not as a memorial and not as an apology, as a promise with witnesses. Teresa sat down slowly. The chair gave its familiar tired creak. For years, Emily had heard that sound as proof of everything the clinic lacked: money, Polish, distance from her father's shadow. That morning, it sounded different. It sounded like something still holding. Helen stood near the doorway, arms folded, watching the first line of patients gather outside in the pale light. Some came because they had heard the clinic might close and wanted to see whether kindness had survived another rich man's plan. Emily opened the front door wider. No speech, no lesson, no victory smile for the people who had hurt her. Just the bell above the door sticking once, then ringing clear. And, in the corner, the green chair waited again. This time, no one called it something to throw away.